Good evening and welcome to Scotland at 7. My name is Saoirse Healey. There's no guest in the studio with me tonight, so I will be running you through today's top stories. As always, we start with our Ukraine update. It is day 526 of the war. Kyiv defended itself against the 8th consecutive nightly drone attack early this morning. The Kyiv Regional Military Administration, the KMVA, reported no damage was recorded in the preliminary reports. The Ukrainian Air Force claimed to have shot down all 15 Shahed suicide drones launched overnight. 3 civilians and 4 emergency service workers have been injured in a Russian strike on Kherson, according to Ukraine's state broadcaster. Deputy Ukrainian Defense Minister Hanna Maliar said Russian forces have made no headway along the front lines but are entrenched in heavily mined areas they control, making it difficult for Ukrainian troops to move east and south. Alexei Danilov, the Secretary of Ukraine's Security Council, told Ukrainian national television on Wednesday that Russian forces had ample time in months of occupation to prepare defenses and lay down extensive minefields. Russia claimed it downed 6 drones in the Kaluga region overnight, followed by another this morning. Kaluga region is to the southwest of the Moscow region and the northeast of Russia's Bryansk region, which borders Ukraine. Ukrainians living in Russian-occupied territory are being forced to assume Russian citizenship or face retaliation, including possible deportation or detention, a new report by Yale University researchers has said. Fighters from Russia's private Wagner mercenary force are being moved close to NATO's eastern flank to destabilize the military alliance, Poland's prime minister alleged today. German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius today again ruled out supplying Ukraine with long-range Taurus missiles, saying that it was not a top priority right now. Russia has added Norway to its list of foreign states that have committed unfriendly acts against Russian diplomatic missions. The European Union has warned developing countries that Russia is offering cheap grain to create new dependencies by exacerbating economic vulnerabilities and global food insecurity, according to a letter from EU Foreign Policy Chief Joseph Borrell to developing and G20 countries. Ukraine's Prime Minister Denis Shmyhal has said the country is considering the possibility of insuring ships going through the grain corridor. The Bank of England has warned businesses and households that the cost of borrowing will remain high for at least the next 2 years as it raised interest rates for the 14th consecutive time to 5.25. Ruling out the likelihood of a recession over the next 2 years, policymakers blamed strong wages growth in recent months for the need to increase interest rates by 0.25 percent points to the highest levels for 15 years. Officials on the bank's Monetary Policy Committee have said the economy had proven more resilient during a period of high interest rates than they expected when they last made the assessment of the UK economy in May. Energy prices were expected to fall over the rest of the year, bringing down inflation below 5% in the fourth quarter, allowing the UK government to declare a victory in its mission to halve inflation by the end of 2023, from a peak of 10.5 at the start of the year. However, the bank has said strong demand for workers, which is pushing wages higher, a slower decline in food inflation, and a rise of the cost of services has only just reached a peak were bringing a persistent barrier to bringing down inflation. The Consumer Price Index fell in June to 7.9% from 8.7% in the last month, while the latest market data showed average wage rises stood at 7.7%. The bank's governor, Andrew Bailey, who backed the quarter-point increase, said the MPC's efforts meant inflation was on course to fall towards its 2% target. The 9-strong MPC split 3 ways on today's rate decisions. 2 members voted to increase interest rates by a sharper 0.5% after a succession of forecasts that had underpredicted inflationary pressures and the possibility that the latest outlook would repeat the error. Swati Dhingra, meanwhile, voted to keep rates on hold. arguing that the effects of the previous interest rate rises had yet to work their way through to household and business finances and should be allowed more time to dampen spending. Responding to the interest rates rise, the SNP's economic spokesperson, Stuart Hosey MP, said, "Interest rates rising is a direct result of the UK economic collapse created by the Tories. However, as Professor Martin Wheal mentioned on Good Morning Scotland this morning, the reason the UK is falling further behind its European neighbours is because of Brexit, something Keir Starmer and his pro-Brexit Labour colleagues now actively support. It's clear that for as long as Rishi Sunak and Keir Starmer remain wielded to their Brexit ideology, the UK's economy will continue to suffer." Sticking with the Brexit agenda, Brexit checks on fresh farm food produce coming to the UK from the EU have been delayed for the fifth time, according to reports. The decision to suspend plans to enforce the controls which have been applied in other directions to UK exports to the EU since January 2021 is due to be announced imminently, according to the Financial Times. The delay is intended to give the government and exporters in the EU more time to prepare for the checks, setting Rishi Sunak on a collision course with UK domestic food producers who have long argued that it gives a free pass to continental rivals while they have to endure all the checks on fresh food exports to the bloc. According to reports, there are extra concerns that red tape would increase the cost of food imports to consumers and fuel further inflation. The decision comes just days after the government abandoned plans to force manufacturers to label their products with an alternative to the EU's CE safety mark. Industry representatives welcomed the delay. There were concerns that EU producers, some of whom were small producers of specialist products such as cheese, were not even aware of the new requirements that could have led to shortages on the shelves. Another industry source said that it was a treasury purge of all changes that would cause disruption to the supply chain, given the sensitivity of the food market to price increases in the current economic climate. Before Brexit, exporters could send chilled and fresh food to the EU without any paperwork because the UK was a member of the single market. Since the UK's departure from the EU, fresh and chilled foods such as sausages or cheese, along with animal and plant products including timber and leather, are subject to sanitary and phytosanitary checks, SPS checks, and can only be exported with health or veterinary certificate. Exporters from the EU have not had to endure the paperwork after the UK government failed to build the new SPS systems or secure land for SPS parks to conduct random physical checks. The Brexit cliff edge in 2021 left British exporters of fish and other goods in chaos, with a lack of customs agents and veterinary staff to certify whether the produce complied with EU standards. But in the UK Brexit checks that were pushed back in 2020 on 2 occasions in 2021 and then again last year by the then Brexit Opportunities Minister Jacob Rees-Mogg. In April, the UK government announced the checks would finally be phased in from the 31st of October, with further checks implemented in 2023 and 24. The checks in October were to involve paperwork known as pre-certification that would alert authorities to the arrival of food products with public health compliance requirements. It is now expected that these checks will now be pushed back to the end of January, when the physical SPS checks are due to become operational. Moving to the Hamilton, West and Rutherglen by-elections, new analysis in the area of nearly 1,600 households has found that they have been impacted by the Labour-backed bedroom tax. The analysis, conducted by the SNP using the latest data available from the UK Government Department for Work and Pensions, revealed that 2,338 households in South Lanarkshire have had their housing benefits cut due to the policy as of February 2023. In addition, 1,583 households in receipt of universal credit in Rutherglen and Hamilton West have also had their housing benefits cut due to the cruel bedroom tax of September 2022. Commenting, the candidate for Rutherglen and Hamilton West by-election, Katie Loudon, said, "This is yet another broken promise from Keir Starmer, whose party are becoming indistinguishable from the Tories. In contrast, the SNP Scottish Government continues to spend tens of millions of pounds protecting families across Scotland by mitigating policies like the bedroom tax, all while having one hand tied behind its back. Voters should be in no doubt that any Labour candidate willing to stand on this platform is actively campaigning to push children and families into poverty." 5 Greenpeace activists have been arrested after ending their rooftop protest at Rishi Sunak's North Yorkshire mansion, which they mounted to drive home the dangerous consequence of a new drilling frenzy. The campaigners draped the Prime Minister's Grade 2 listed manor house with an oil black fabric this Thursday morning. Police said that they were managing the situation after being called to the home in Kirby Sigston near North Allerton at about 8 a.m. after the activists climbed onto the roof while Sunak, his wife, and daughters were on holiday in California. The group came down at about 1:15 p.m. and were spoken to by officers before being driven away in police vans. Peter Walker, a former Deputy Chief Constable of North Yorkshire, claimed it was a major breach of security as he called for an investigation into how this has been allowed to happen. The retired officer told LBC he was absolutely astonished that Greenpeace had managed to gain access. This time it happens to be Greenpeace, but what if it had been a terrorist organisation leaving an explosive device, he asked. After reaching the top of the house using ladders and climbing ropes at about 6 a.m, activists unfolded 200 square metres of fabric to cover a whole side of the property. 2 other activists unfurled a banner stating Rishi Sunak, "Oil profits or our future," across the grass in front of the house. Talking outside the property today, the Greenpeace campaigner Philip Evans said the activists had made sure that the Prime Minister's family were not going to be at home before carrying out the protest, which is a response to Sunak saying that he would max out oil and gas in the North Sea. The TUC has accused the UK Work and Pensions Secretary Mel Stride of glorifying the gig economy instead of tackling the real challenges facing older workers after he suggested unemployed over 50s consider becoming delivery drivers. On a visit to the London headquarters of food delivery firm Deliveroo, Stride said it was good for people to consider options they might not have thought of otherwise, including those traditionally seen as being for younger workers. He hailed the benefits of working for the delivery app, saying, "What we're seeing here is the ability to log on and off anytime you like, no requirement to have to do a certain number of hours over a certain period of time, which is huge driving opportunities." The TUC's Senior Policy Officer for Employment Rights, Tim Sharp, said the reality of the gig economy tends to be very different. Often pay is low and there's no job security, little, if any, employment rights. It's not the solution the government should be thinking about, he said. He warns that Stride's comments risk glorifying the gig economy. Sharp conceded that there have been improvements in the conditions in recent years, including a union recognition between Deliveroo and the GMB, but questioned whether such jobs offer genuine flexibility for staff. It's one-sided flexibility. There's times in a day when you'll make money and there's times where you won't make money. We shouldn't be funneling over 50s down that road. Instead, he called on the government to ensure all older workers get the flexibility and support with their health and well-being they need. That assessment was echoed by Dr. Callum Cant of the Internet Institute of Oxford University, author of a 2019 book on working and union organising at Deliveroo. These jobs are particularly insecure because the wage is never guaranteed. People are always at risk of earning less than the minimum wage, Cant said. The idea that people would be relying on that as a pension income is shocking to me. No one should be pushed into jobs like these. Police are investigating a leaflet distributed by the Welsh Secretary and Monmouth MP David T.C. Davies, which was accused of bordering on racism. In what was billed as an important update to constituents, the leaflet encouraged people to give their thoughts to the local Labour-controlled council plans to establish a number of gypsy traveller sites in the county. Under the heading, Gypsy and Traveller Site Coming to Your Area Soon, the Conservative MP said he was concerned a public consultation on the plans being held during the summer holidays meant many residents will be unable to participate. Providing his own form for people to fill in, Davies' leaflet invited constituents to give their own view on the establishment of sites along with their details. It contained a privacy agreement saying that the Conservative Party would use people's information with their consent inside and outside election periods. The leaflet was criticised by Mapon ap Gorffon, a Plaid Cymru member of the Welsh Senate. In a tweet in Welsh, translated into English, he said it borders on racism and that the Roma community is a community that has been the most persecuted in the UK. Travelling Ahead, the group that provides advocacy and advice for Gypsy, Roma and traveller communities in Wales, said the leaflet was a clear breach of the Equality Act. It commended dog whistle actions intended to create a hostile environment for gypsies and travellers. Trudy Aspinwall, the project manager of Travelling Ahead, told Wales Online, which first reported the story, that she had been contacted by several Gypsy, Roma and traveller families concerned about the leaflet. She said they were upset, angry and worried that pieces of land could become Gypsy, Roma and traveller sites could be viewed with hostility as any piece of land that might end up as a home for a gypsy or a traveller. People would be subject to this kind of high-level discrimination and hostility. Police are investigating after the complaints. A spokesperson for Gwent Police said, "We are aware of a leaflet published and distributed in the Monmouthshire regarding proposals for a development of a gypsy and traveller site." The UK Foreign Office has failed to notice a UK academic who might have been tortured when its staff visited him whilst in detention in Abu Dhabi, the UK's National Ombudsman has found. Matthew Hedges has travelled to the UAE to carry out research for his PhD when he was arrested at Dubai Airport on suspicion of being a spy for the UK government. Mr. Hedges said that during his 6 months detention in 2018, he was interrogated for 8 to 15 hours a day, kept in solitary confinement, and was forcibly given medication. He suffered panic attacks and was placed under intense psychological pressure. He said that when a representative from the British Embassy was allowed to visit him, he was supervised by guards who told him what to say. He complained to the Parliamentary Health Service Ombudsman that the Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office failed to notice how he was being mistreated. The Ombudsman investigation found that the UK government failed to follow its own guidance on detecting potential torture and mistreatment of British nationals. When they visited him, embassy staff noticed Mr. Hedges' voice was shaking. He avoided eye contact and mentioned having anxiety attacks. These were all signs that he might have been subject to torture or mistreatment. The FCDO guidelines state that staff should act on these warnings signs even when they do not have consent. Given that Mr. Hedges was supervised at all times by those he alleges were mistreating him, it must have been clear to the FCDO staff that he was not in a position to give or withhold consent. PHSO Chief Executive Rebecca Hillenstrath said, "It is hard to imagine the experience that Mr. Hedges has endured and quite how terrifying his detention must have been. The nightmare was made even worse by being failed by the British government. He trusted them to help him and they let him down. Officials failed to notice signs of torture, failed to intervene, and failed to help." Over in America, Donald Trump is scheduled to surrender to federal authorities in Washington this afternoon on charges that he conspired to defraud the United States, among other crimes, in his quest to subvert the results of the 2020 presidential election. The twice impeached ex-president, who has now been indicted 3 times since leaving the White House, was expected to be booked and fingerprinted in the federal district court before being escorted to his arraignment, which has been set for 4 p.m. local time, which is 9 p.m. in Scotland. Trump will set to make his first appearance in the case in person, traveling for the arraignment from his Bedminster club in New Jersey to Washington with his lawyers and several top campaign staffers. He is expected to plead not guilty. The initial appearance, when Trump enters a plea formally, starts the pretrial process that will run into the timetable for his other criminal trials next year and the 2024 presidential race, where Trump is the frontrunner for the Republican nomination. Today's arraignment follows the release of a 45-page indictment alleging that Trump convened false slates of electors and sought sham election investigators from the Justice Department in order to obstruct the certification of the election result in an attempt to remain president. The indictment also listed 6 co-conspirators who were not charged in the indictment. While they were unnamed, the descriptions of 5 of the 6 matched those of the Trump lawyers, Rudy Giuliani, Sidney Powell, John Eastman, Kent Chesnebro, as well as the former U.S. Justice Department official Jeff Clark. The hearing will be in a courthouse just blocks from the Capitol building, where Trump's efforts to reverse his election defeat to Joe Biden culminated in the 6th of January riot. The case itself has been assigned to the U.S. District Court Judge Tanya Chutkan, a former assistant public defender who was nominated to the bench by Barack Obama. In 2021, Chutkan was the judge who rejected Trump's attempt to block the House January 6 Select Committee investigating the Capitol riot from gaining access to presidential records. Presidents are not kings, and plaintiff is not president, she wrote at the time. The charges in Washington came in the second indictment brought by the special counsel Jack Smith, who previously charged Trump in June with retaining national security documents at his Mar-a-Lago club in Florida and obstructing the government's efforts to retrieve them. Trump has also been indicted in an unrelated case by the Manhattan District Attorney who charged him over hush money payments to an adult film star, Stormy Daniels, before the 2016 election. He's expected to be indicted a 4th time over 2020 election-related charges in Georgia. Moving back to Scotland, leading figures from business, trade unions, equality groups and academia are coming together to advise the Scottish Government on its Fair Work agenda. Chaired by Wellbeing Economy Secretary Neil Gray, and the Fair Work Oversight Group meets for the first time today, Thursday the 3rd of August, and will help to ensure that policies deliver on the aim of creating a fair, green and growing economy. Group members include the representatives from the Scottish Chamber of Commerce, the Fair Work Convention and the Fraser Allender Institute, underlining a broad commitment to the Scottish Government's ambition to encourage payment of the real living wage, give employees a voice in the workplace and provide equal opportunity. As well as reviewing the preparation and implementation of the policy, the group will share best practice and submit a report on fair work progress to Parliament in early 2024. Mr. Gray said, "Fair work and fair pay make sense for both workers and employers across all sectors, helping to improve staff retention and productivity, reduce recruitment costs, and contribute to a skilled and motivated workforce. The diversity of this group is a testament to our shared ambition for fair work and to be an integral part of Scotland's well-being economy. Members will bring to the table ideas and insights across Scottish society. They will also support and scrutinise our plans to ensure we work in partnership effectively. While employers have made good progress, more can be done to tackle inequalities and improve conditions in workplaces. The group will advise on how to best address ongoing challenges and take forward our Fair Work Action Plan." the Old Alliance agree on a collaboration on green energy. A cooperation agreement with the French region of Brittany aims to strengthen Scotland's position as a leader in Europe's offshore renewables industry. The Scottish Government has signed a bilateral Memorandum of Understanding, an MOU, with Brittany, the first of its kind for Scotland, with a region in France. The MOU will provide Scottish companies with opportunities to capitalise and share best practice on the expansion of offshore wind projects off the coast of Brittany. A delegation of 15 Scottish companies, supported by Scottish Development International, recently met representatives from Brittany's offshore wind sector to discuss future collaboration. The MOU will also instigate a programme of actions that will cover institutional relations, culture and heritage, education and research, fisheries and diaspora. Separately, the Scottish Government signed the Wren's Declaration, which will build on existing cultural, historic and linguistic bonds with Brittany, Ireland, Wales and the Spanish region of Galicia. The forum will also be an opportunity to discuss collaboration with other partners such as Cornwall and the Spanish region of Asturias. In Rennes, attending the first ever Celtic Forum, Deputy First Minister Shona Robertson said, "Scotland is working with our partners in Europe, and this MOU and declaration will help us collaborate across a range of topics. The people of Scotland resoundingly rejected Brexit, yet it has caused significant adverse effects to our economy and our trade relations. In spite of this, the Scottish Government remains firmly committed to developing partnerships with our European neighbours. We are keen to maximise opportunity for Scottish companies and learn from our Celtic partners as we look towards a future with cleaner, greener energy. Scotland's rich renewable endowment means that we can not only generate enough cheap green energy to power Scotland's economy, but also export electricity to our neighbours, supporting jobs here in Scotland and decarbonisation ambitions of our partners." Well, that's it for this evening. Thank you so much for tuning in. Before I go, I just want to remind you that here at Broadcasting Scotland, we depend on the generosity of you, our lovely viewers. So to everyone who's donated and to everyone who already has signed up to make regular monthly payments, thank you so much. Our programmes will of course always be free to view. However, if you can afford £5 a month, please consider becoming a Broadcasting Scotland supporter. Right now, we have a really pressing need to raise £30,000 to pay our bills and ensure that we are able to continue making programmes. So far, we have nearly raised £10,000, but we really need to raise the remaining amount as soon as possible. I'm Saoirse Healey. Good night, and thank you for watching.
Hello and welcome to Broadcasting Scotland. My name is Lewis McGlynn.
Hello and welcome to Broadcasting Scotland. My name is Saoirse Healey.
Hello and welcome to Broadcasting Scotland. My name is Donald C. Stewart. Broadcasting Scotland is Scotland's independent broadcaster, providing factual news, reporting on the issues important to the people of Scotland.
We are committed to public service broadcasting, and with your support, we will produce even more programmes.
Provide opportunities for young people interested in media production and broadcasting, and challenge preconceptions of what Scottish media looks like, amplifying Scotland's voice and reflecting its communities.
We can already deliver high-quality live news, and we will create the highest quality programmes for you to enjoy. But we can only do that with your support.
So please subscribe to and share our channel or donate to Broadcasting Scotland via the link in the description. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.